Great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Wiley, and I'm the Engineering Career Coach in the Center for Career Development. I am so happy to host this event today. I would like to welcome our wonderful panelists this morning as we talk about the graduate school admissions and selection process. Joining us today, we have Alexis Anderson. She's the Program Manager for Online Master's Degree in Communication and Information. We have Matthew Pittman, the Assistant Professor in the College of Communications and Information. We have Carrie Stevens, Professor and Graduate Coordinator for Agricultural Leadership. And we have Kathleen Brown, an Associate Professor of Practice and the Director for the Masters of Public Health Program. Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning.
Good. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I do want to remind everybody that may be watching on Facebook that if you would like to ask a question live, we definitely encourage that. Go ahead and put a question in the comments, and at the end of the program, we'll make sure to answer your question. But we're going to get started off this morning with just tell us a little bit about yourself. And if Alexis, you want to start, that would be great.
Sure. My name is Alexis Anderson, and I am the new program manager for our new online master's degree in the College of Communication and Information. I have a background in project management, and I came from the Office of Research at UTK, and I'm really excited about being here.
Great. Matthew, would you go ahead next, please?
Sure. I have a weird grad school journey. I was a youth pastor, and then I went and got my master in divinity to be like a adult pastor. And then I realized that wasn't for me. So I switched over to media studies for my PhD. And now I teach advertising, kind of digital persuasion stuff. So life is a journey.
Fantastic. Thank you. Carrie, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a professor in the Department of Ag Leadership, Education, and Communications, and I just started my 19th year at UT. Came through ag education and decided that I didn't think there was enough representative of individuals in our field, so I pursued a master's and PhD in ag ed and leadership, and so that's what I do. I'm in charge of our master's program, and I'm the graduate director, so welcome.
Fantastic. Kathleen, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I'm in the Department of Public Health. I'm director of our MPH program. My journey has also been less than direct and linear. I started out as an ICU nurse and thought I'd move over to where more healthy people were in public health, only to find out that's not true. But it's been a wonderful, exciting opportunity and career path. I've worked in public health, local, and been at the university, left the university, came back to the university, and very happy to be here.
Great, thank you, Kathleen. As you can see, we have a wealth of knowledge in front of us, and so we're excited to kind of get started with some of these questions that I'm sure our students have for you all. But if you could first touch on what does the typical admissions process look like for graduate school programs? I know every one of them is different and they all have different qualifications and timelines and different materials you have to turn in. But in general, what do you see that students need in order to apply? And anyone can answer.
Well, I'll start us off. It's very important to start early and look ahead and really focus in on what those deadlines are, because they're not all the same across our university, much less others. But organizing to apply for graduate school also takes that communication with past professors or instructors, because you're going to need to have recommendations. And so developing and nurturing those relationships now, while you're in undergrad, or even if you're out, rekindling those relationships so that those recommendations can get in on a timely level. Thinking about the field and really preparing personal statements. And so it's understanding what's required by the program and organizing and giving yourself the time to do it and do it well. We have 3 different deadline dates depending on when someone would want to admit, And so it really varies by program.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I think the biggest thing that I see as far as graduate students getting ready to go to graduate school, figure out a unique way to basically sell yourself to the program, and think about, as an undergrad, what kind of activities are you engaged in that you can really highlight? What kind of leadership initiatives have you taken? Because I think that's important. When we're reviewing applications, we don't always get to see you face to face. So really putting together your materials to really highlight your strengths and what you can bring to the program. And then also thinking about programs in terms of what you want in return. Because I think we have students that'll apply that don't really even know what they want out of the program. So I think thinking about those things on the front end, that way it'll help guide your process on the best program that fits you.
Great. Alexis or Matt, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I have a little bit of a different perspective just because our program is online. And since it's new, we are admitting 3 semesters a year, fall, spring, and summer session. And so, a little bit more elaborating on the personal statement, we're looking for, what makes you a great distance education student. It takes a little bit more self-discipline to be an online student, which I think a lot of people have a lot more practice now than they did a few months ago. But yeah, those timelines are really important. I had someone contact me the day before school started and ask me, is it too late to start tomorrow, for this semester? And it does take a few weeks to get those applications reviewed. We currently do not have a deadline, but we always recommend, at least 3 weeks before the start of semester to get all this materials in and reviewed on time.
It's pretty obvious, but just knowing why you want to go, like what your long-term goals are and how this specific graduate degree helps you get there. So I remember I would take, when I was in my master's, like go out to lunch with a professor or something, or even just Googling the stats. Hey, people that get this degree, what have they done? What can they do? How does this meet my needs? Yeah, really important, really obvious, but it's surprising how many people are like, you say, why do you want to go? I don't know. Just something to do. I don't want to get in the real world yet. Like, no, it's not a compelling reason.
Agreed.
Definitely. Thank you for that wisdom. What to you makes a standout applicant? What makes you look at their application materials and go, wow, like I want to admit this student to our program?
Again, I will start that off. I think it's really, for our program, we have an online master's program as well. So it is about organizational skills, time management skills, but we have their personal and professional goal statement, and that's what we really look at. And so I think my advice to graduate students to really think through that personal and professional goal statement. We'll get students that submit a paragraph. Well, that doesn't really give me an outlook on, again, what you want from the program, how you're going to manage your time, how you'll be successful. So really thinking about that personal and professional goal statement to, again, communicate your initiatives to the graduate faculty.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And we have often, it's expressed to us in public health, well, I want to help people. And that's great, but probably 95% of people want to help people. What we want to know is, in what way, how do you see yourself conducting this? But also some insight in this personal statement. And again, I agree, this is the opportunity to give the more subjective view of you, rather than your academic history and maybe GRE scores. All those are all very objective. But this is the time to come forth, sometimes with that personal, what was motivating, what was influential in your life to move you towards this career path. And we look to see that the applicant, for us, knows something, has done a little exploring, a little digging into what public health is about, because it's very broad. It's very big. It is about helping. It's about helping the world. So, you know, there's nothing excluded. We'd like to see a little more detail, depth, conveying to us that I have the beginning understanding of public health, and I'm coming here to really expand on that. Again, going beyond the very surface level of, giving back to community, wanting to help, but a little bit more than that. So it takes some work and time. And I would encourage you to have someone else read it, maybe more than once. Get some feedback. Have it critiqued, because this may make the difference between getting in or not. So it's worth that humbling experience of saying, hey, would you read my, because it's about me, or you. So don't feel shy about doing that, because it may be very well worth your time and effort.
Yeah, I would say the same about the personal statement, and as well as the letters of recommendation. Make sure those people really know you, and are not just checking the boxes on the form. Make that personal connection, and it's okay if you don't have necessarily professors you're connected with. Well, in my case, there's a lot of professional students that are coming back for this degree while they're working. It could be an employer, it could be a coworker, but somebody really knows you and knows your dedication to your career, or your pursuit of a master's degree, and and speaks to your work ethic, and in that personal statement as well, just make it personal. Like Kathleen said, we're not just looking for your standard stock cover letter. We've had students that just have expressed a lifelong passion to be a volunteer, and that goes a long way, because we know they're going to be committed to their academic journey, and then they're going to be great alums of the university someday.
Yeah, I would echo all that and say I think of it sometimes in terms of a relationship. So we want to know that you have it's a balance, and the balance, the exact proportions depend on the program and all that stuff. But on the one hand, we want to know that you have enough of an identity and a drive and a passion on your own that you're going to succeed kind of no matter where you go. On the other hand, we want to know that you've done your research on us, you know what we're about, and you know how we can help you meet that goal. So if you say in your letter, I'm definitely going to study whatever public health, like Ebola in Alabama in 1982, and that's it. Well, all right, maybe you don't need grad school because you already have it all figured out. So finding the balance of, I have a core desire, passion, and to get where I want, I think you all, we can help each other. You can help me meet that goal.
Great. I'm going a little off script here because it made me think of a question that I get often from our students. So how important is the GRE or any sort of test you have to take before applying to grad school, and the GPA? Is it more of a holistic process when you are reviewing these applications, or is there a real strict cutoff for those things?
I think I can start that one off, just because we have such a broad range of graduate students that are applying for our program currently. We do not require a GRE for our program, but we do require the minimum GPA that the graduate school admits, which is 2.7. And I think a lot of it is is the whole package. We're looking at those letters as well as the personal statement. And it's, it speaks to, and a lot of times in that personal statement, if you had a GPA less than, you would think that a graduate school would admit, express that in your letter. Hey, I had a rough year my sophomore year because, something happened at home, or a personal situation, or, there was a major event. Explain that. And that helps, again, like Matthew said, getting to know in that personal relationship, building that relationship. I think, again, there's a lot that can overcome a less than stellar GPA by telling your story in that personal statement. It is really important, and especially, I'm looking at particular courses, for strong grades in particular courses that, support the master's level work that these students will be doing. But for at least our program, it's sort of an overall approach, but it might be different in different areas.
And it can be, you can overcome bad numbers at first. I started my master's program on academic probation, which was a little humbling. But there was like a decade in between finishing my undergrad and going back to grad school, and I grew a lot and I basically became an adult in that time. So I said that in my letter, and people believed in me and took a chance.
Yeah, and again, your personal statements too. We admitted somebody with less than the graduate school, required GPA because they had a strong personal statement and they had a strong military career in between. And for us, that military experience, we really demonstrated what it means to be a volunteer, and we were willing to give that person a chance. And so far, they've had a great semester.
Yeah, for our program, one application is just that. It's one application. We try to look at each one as an individual, and we're fortunately able to do that. We have rolling admission, which means we review and we don't have a major cutoff. We have suspended the requirement for the GRE, but we are actually in the process of having it eliminated as a requirement. We have not found it to be a predictor of success in the program. We do certainly look at GPA. Our requirement is a 3.0 in addition. So everyone has to meet the graduate school's 2.7. Though even there is opportunity for consideration given personal circumstances. And we also look, again, I do the same thing. I review every applicant. I'm the last person to review and sign off. Sometimes there's just something that resonates with me or touches me or says, you know what, there's something here. I may reach out to that student and have a call, a meeting, Zoom now, sometimes face-to-face if possible. Sometimes I've asked for a sample, a writing sample. We like to think that we're seeking persons with the potential to be leaders in public health, the future leaders in public health. And we know that the highest scores do not always mean the best person for that future role. So we really look at the individual very holistically, look for those things, look for consistency across, say, recommendations, everything. But also, we do the same as Matthew described and Alexis. Sometimes you see a year that was just out of, it's not like the rest of the years. And if the student has not talked about that, I might ask them to. And it's usually because there was something very significant that occurred. So sharing that, using that as part of the personal statement. During my sophomore or junior year, I had these particular challenges. And we don't need details, and details have been shared at times, which more than I needed, but that's okay. Everything's confidential. And it turns out win-win really for both, because the motivation to come back may be very high. The motivation that it took to overcome and the commitment is a huge learning experience. And we have not regretted one admission when it appeared, if we had just looked at the paper and the numbers or the screen, it might have gone a different way. So it's about sharing enough to give a insight to yourself.
Well, and I'm going to echo all of you, because we don't require the GRE anymore either, because it wasn't an indicator of success, particularly when you're looking at social science kind of courses, research, that type of thing. But I'll agree. I mean, we've admitted a few students lower than the GPA, but have been outstanding students. And we have one in our program right now, and just an amazing student, but just struggled at an undergraduate point in her life. And I would say to graduate students, we all have struggled at some point in our life. So reaching out to those graduate coordinators, if you're really interested in the program, and really communicating with them, why you want in the program, what not, like you said, Kathleen, you don't mean to go into a ton of detail, but really give a piece of what happened. So that way, I mean, again, we all grow up, we all go through things, and it doesn't always mean that just because you have a, lower GPA that you can't be successful in programs. So.
Thank you so much for those answers. That was great. We actually have a couple questions from the audience, so I'm going to ask those that pertain to this topic. So when you see a no credit class on a transcript, how does that strike you? Does it strike you as being an issue, or is it, again, part of the holistic package of their admissions?
Yeah, for me, when I go through the academic history, sometimes it's within the context of a very heavy semester, or, again, so many students are working, they're maintaining pretty heavy loads. And sometimes it's also about managing all of the things within their life. And maybe that was a decision that might have been difficult, or maybe really easy, and we know sometimes it's protective of the GPA, but one course to me, it's like, it's one data point. It's not a trend. If you see a lot of that throughout the academic career, might be worthy of a question or a conversation.
Especially if it's not in a major course that they're specializing in.
Right.
Yes.
We see students that have repeated courses. Sometimes what the student was majoring in has an influence. So someone's coming from neurobiology or the hard sciences, and public health, we're a blend. We draw a little bit from a lot of different areas and sciences. We're not purists. We're social, we've got a little bit of the hard, but so we consider that as well. And we have students, and it's such a beautiful mix, because we have students who are coming from hard sciences, social sciences, the returning after being in the workplace and industry for a while. And what we find is that mix creates very rich discussion and group dynamics for the students. So we take each application as a unique applicant.
Great. Yeah, and I'm going to ask McLean's question in the chat. So would the personal statement be the best area to address a time period of facing adversity, or are there better times to convey that, like in an interview?
Well, that is a really good question, because in our personal and professional goal statement letters, we're looking to see why you want to be in the department personally and where that can take you professionally. But if, for example, if it is a 2.7 to get in to UT, and let's say you have a 2.68, right? We have to write an exception anyways. So that needs to be communicated. I would prefer someone to call me and let's have a conversation, and then I script that about how we're going to write that exception or explain that adversity, because you're going to have to do that to the graduate school anyway. So that's my personal opinion, but others might have a different approach.
Yeah, I approach it the exact same way as Carrie. I've reached out and said, hey, I noticed you had a GPA. Can we talk about this? Or, I noticed, in your, because our personal statements are not super long, you had one sentence about this. Can we talk about this a little bit more? Because we do have to write that exception letter. So I think, in our case, we do not have a formal interview process. We do have conversations as needed. Some people, just apply and get in, with their application package as is, and others, it's a little bit more, a personal approach. So I think, at least broach the subject of it in the personal statement, because then, you can always expand on it from there. Other than that, you just sort of leave it to chance a little bit.
Getting feedback from somebody else is probably a good idea too, because the other end of the spectrum would be you got an A- in chemistry freshman year and you're devastated and you think it's going to sandbag your entire future. And so you devote like your whole letter to like, I'm sorry, it was a down year, something that nobody would have ever even blinked twice at anyway. And now you're like highlighting it, which could also, yeah, be negative. So getting feedback as to whether or not it's even worth addressing is probably a good idea.
And I think that the other point is this is another reason to really look at the program requirements and do your own self-assessment. Do I meet them? And if I don't, maybe I need, but I really want to go there, reach out to the program director. Get emails every day, regularly. Happy to respond, happy to have a conversation. So instead of struggling with, do I put it in? Do I ignore it? Maybe they'll miss it. Maybe they'll see it, but I need to do. Just ask. Go to the source, ask, and receive some of that guidance. The whole conversation may be had on the spot. So it can, again, look at what's required by the program, and if you're borderline but you can reach out. Please reach out. I know my contact information is on the website. I'm sure everyone's is that's contacts for the program. And so don't hesitate to reach out. We're here for you. We want you here. So we're happy to talk with you.
Great, thank you so much. I think that was awesome information and a lot of questions that I think our students have, you all answered. That's fantastic. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about funding graduate school, because sometimes I know that in the selection and admissions process, you need to take some steps to think about how you're going to fund this program. So if you can just comment on some ways that you all help your graduate students fund graduate school.
I guess I could start on this one. Currently, since this is a new program, we don't have any scholarships because it is an online program. We don't have, typical graduate assistantships or internships that can help here on campus. And also lots of our students are working professionals, so it would be hard to take on another extra assignment like that. But, we direct all of our students to One Stop. One Stop is a great resource right here on campus, and they have lots of financial aid resources, loans, and other programs that can offset the cost of graduate schools, and then outside of UT, there's lots of other, funding options as well, scholarships, things like that are also available. And another big one that some people overlook is employers. Lots of employers have programs where their employer will pay all or part of your graduate studies, especially if it relates directly to your job duties. So always worth asking your employer, even if they don't have a formal program, maybe they'd be willing to work with you on that tuition as well.
Yeah, I think all of that applies. I also encourage students to watch the graduate school page because they're often announcing assistantships there that may not be from within my department, but they're kind of cross the university. Sometimes they're in the chancellor's office or these different places that are not maybe specific, a specific academic unit. And it's important for students to know that assistantships are not limited by your academic unit, that some of them are just sort of open call, so to speak. We have a limited number of assistantships. We do prioritize our doctoral students, and that's, I think, fairly common across the university and programs. It's an expectation that we would support doctoral students, but we have a limited number that we do award. With every letter of acceptance, and though it's on our website anyway, it is accompanied by an application for assistantship, so that if we have any, if they are available, we're happy to put everyone into that pool. I don't know a student that comes that doesn't say, oh, I could really use some financial assistance. So doing the digging, doing the searching. Sometimes there are sources, as Alexa said, outside of the university and the standard, the loans for different interest areas. And sometimes there's support for persons who are willing to do payback. So public health service. Sometimes there is support for someone who will then commit later on. And I wouldn't completely exclude if it's in your wheelhouse, the military, because there's certainly support. So there's many, many different pathways and opportunities for looking for financial support.
Kathleen, I'll steal what you said for the last question, which is reaching out and asking, saying, hey, what % of grad students have it totally paid for? What % have it partially paid for? Are they getting a couple $100 in the summer for research fellowships or a couple thousand for whatever? Just asking people, because depending on the smaller the program, usually the more, like if there's like under 10 master students or PhD students, there's probably more flexibility with being able to find money if you help on some project. So asking is probably a good outlet too.
Yeah, I would agree with all of those. I mean, we have students who get assistance from their employers a lot because we have mostly distance students. We have assistantships, but I like Kathleen, we always try to push students if they want to come to campus, even if they may take some courses online, to look throughout campus for other graduate assistantships. But I guess, I don't know if this really goes into funding, but it's a plug maybe for out-of-state students as well, that our university has done a really good job of out-of-state tuition being very close to our in-state tuition too. So, you know, while that's not really a funding, it's a plug to say, if you graduate from UT, but let's say you want to go to Kentucky and you have this really great online program, you can come for almost the same tuition as what you can in-state as well, so.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I know like assistantships and funding can be different for every program, just like we were talking about a bunch of the admissions requirements. Because when I applied to grad school, I know when I, interviewed at Texas A&M, I had to get an assistantship to get in the program. And so sometimes that is the case. And sometimes it's the case that you could get into the program and then apply for assistantships later. It really is dependent on the program. So make sure you're doing your research and figuring out what that process is. Great, thank you.
If I could add one more thing, because it just dawned on me about a couple students' experiences. When you said that, the kind of sequencing, I had a student that was actually offered an assistantship with the student or recreation area with T-Rex. And they weren't even completely admitted to the program, but they were bringing a strong skill set that was evaluated and valued. So she ended up being over there and as a manager, and then was admitted into our program and completed the program. I've had quite a few students who work for housing and receive an assistantship. So these are sort of the non-traditional areas where there is the tuition and the stipend, but it's non-academic. So don't, keep the really big, broad perspective on where some assistance might actually occur.
Yes, I am a former housing graduate assistant, so I understand that perspective for sure. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about once they're admitted to graduate school. So how can our students be successful in graduate school, and what's the biggest difference between undergrad and grad school?
I can take a stab at that to start with. I think the biggest thing is time management and organizational skills. Because while in undergrad, you're used to taking 16 hours, and not that your day is completely full, but like in our program, now you're probably working full-time. Most of our students are full-time taking online classes. And what they forget is there's no structured time to go to class. Like, you have this amount of time within the week. You can watch the lectures at any time, do your work, but structuring that time to really focus on schoolwork, I see as the biggest thing is it's the difference because now you're trying to manage maybe work and family and then get this degree. And then we kind of forget about, wow, I am supposed to watch my online class. Because again, if you're an on-campus student, you're still having to organize your time because you might not have face-to-face and online. And so with the online, it's really organizational and time management. And then really figuring out the technology piece, because we have a lot of rural students throughout Tennessee, and I mean out of state too. And so making sure you have compatibility, or your internet is compatible to be able to get the information. While that seems like it shouldn't be an issue anymore, we do have quite a few rural students getting their degree, and it is an issue. So, you know, and then not having the access maybe to advisors that you used to have as an undergrad, like stop by the office. Now you have to make appointments. So those are just a few of the things that I see are the big differences.
Yeah, I think very similar to Carrie, you know, with an online program as well. I think a big difference between undergrad and graduate work is just a lot more, graduate work is more applied, you know, where you may be in undergrad, you know, reading and taking quizzes, you know, it might be more long papers or long assignments, and that time management is going to be huge. You know, you might not have a dedicated, you know, 4 hours, but you've got to make time to do some of those longer assignments. Yeah, and piggybacking on, you know, the time management piece is just making sure that you have a dedicated workspace with minimal distractions. You know, I think like Carrie said, a lot of people have families and jobs, and you know, really just not only carving out that time, but carving out the space, and getting support for that as well. Like, hey, I'm going to be working for these hours. Don't distract me. You know, getting that support for your family, because it's going to be important for you to complete the higher level graduate applied work.
Yeah, I would add too that I think from what I see, some of the differences that in graduate school, there's going to be a lot more, there's a higher expectation for some of the self-learning. Everything will not be presented and then tested on. So you may have 3 related readings or 4 articles, chapters, whatever it is, in preparation for a discussion around this topic. Every single thing you read won't be tested on or be found in some kind of, you know, assessment. It's intended to give you a broader background and perspective around the topic. So there's a lot more, I know in our course, there's a lot more reading. There's a lot more expectation for synthesis across the reading and for across courses. And so ultimately the applied opportunities have that expectation where we're looking for integration of concepts that are gleaned from multiple courses. But I think also, I agree so much, can't stress it enough, the time management, having the time to do that reading. It's not good to just cram it all in, you know, think, I can get this all done in an hour before class. Do yourself. This is actually for you. Take the time to read it. It's your learning. It's your expansion of your knowledge and your skills. These have been carefully selected. It's not, you know, a matter of how much reading can I put on. And I read every single thing. I read it before class again, just so we can make specific references. But the intention is to really prepare you for a higher level of meeting higher level expectations out in industry, and to help you to find a path, find something that you may really want to follow on a next step.
I'm going to add one more thing, because when you were talking, Alexis and both Kathleen, the reading is so critical, because that's kind of your connection to the lecture and the applied. But then it's also, I think, the scholarly writing that is the higher expectation as well. And so even though you're going from undergrad, and yes, it's a master and you're not really at the PhD level yet, and you may be, but it's that expectation to take that writing to the next level too, and write in a more scholarly manner. And I think that's important to think about. You can't just write your paper an hour before class and expect it, you know, to have meaning. So I think that is also the big difference too, is the writing expectation, or the delivery, whatever it is, whether it be the speaking, the writing, that's a step up.
One of the best things I did was make connections to when I first, so my PhD was at Oregon. I reached out to like second, third year students like, hi, can I buy you a coffee? And you can tell me everything important that you learned your first couple years here. And maintaining those like intergenerational friendships helps you see what's coming down the road. Like, oh, that's the year you have comps. Okay, I gotta be ready for that. And all my best time management tools and hacks I learned from my buddy who was a year older than me, but he was real rigorous. Like Monday, all I do is read. Monday is reading day. Tuesday, all I do is write. That's writing day. Great, whatever. Like let's set little study buddy dates and go do that stuff. So that I found that useful. And becoming like friends with whoever your program director is, just checking in every now and then. Hey, I think the insurance stuff's due next Friday, right? Is that the case? Yeah, cool. Okay.
If I could, I want to add something else too, because I think this is important. It sounds like the onus is completely on you, the student, and it greatly is. However, we, the program, have structure and pieces in place to really facilitate this through our new student orientation, through our integration with our Public Health Graduate Student Association, where it provides that opportunity to meet, network with those students who are a little bit further along or coming. Our Graduate Student Association organizes study sessions for comps. We have socials. We value—
Pre-COVID, of course.
I'm sorry?
Before COVID, yes. The happy hours were before COVID.
Exactly. Or in the very safe Zoom environment, which is, we even did an online Zoom graduation in May ceremony, which not a perfect substitute, but it was great. I mean, it was better than not. So we expect it of you, but we also don't expect you just to, come with it. Like you're out of undergraduate school and all of a sudden, all the rules and the things and the processes and what do I do for success? We're here to help you with that. We'll remind you of it. We'll encourage you. I encourage students, check in with your advisor or the program director. Talk to your professors. Talk to who's ever in front of the class, and develop those peer relationships. I've seen true lifelong relationships come out of graduate school and have students reflect on, I thought some of my lifelong friends were going to be from undergrad, but where I really found them was graduate school. So it's important for you to be aware of these things, but know too that you'll get some guidance, facilitation, and assistance with some of these things.
Yeah, that's all great advice. And I would echo pretty much everything y'all said. I think also for graduate students, you all have resources on campus too. Now, your resources may not be thrown in your face like they are for undergrad students, right? They're always telling you about the Center for Career Development or the Academic Success Center. But as graduate students, you can use the resources that are available to you on campus as well, as long as you seek those out. So please use your resources on campus. You probably already pay for them in your fees anyways. So awesome. And I think I want to remind our students that if you have any questions, please put them in the chat on Zoom if you're on Zoom with us today, or in the comments on our Facebook Live page, and we will read those last. But our last question, predetermined question for our panelists is, if a student wants to reach out to you, what is your preferred method of communication? So if you can give us some contact information that you are comfortable with, we would appreciate it.
I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. Especially through COVID, I'm like, here's my cell number, here's my email, however it works for you. Some will write.
Here's my TikTok, follow me.
Yeah, well, I don't do TikTok. Now I am on Twitter, but I don't do any of that other mess. But so I guess for me, I know everyone is everyone's different. So personal cells and all that, but it doesn't matter if we're, particularly now, usually, especially for obviously graduate students, if they're not on campus, can't really stop by because most of us are working virtually, but email, cell, Some will send me a text. Some would much rather just send me a text. Hey, that's fine too. Because I feel like as an instructor that, and I go back to graduate school for me, and we didn't have cell phones then. That's aging me quite a bit. But, you know, you have a question at 8:30 at night. And while it may not be answered the next day, I may not answer, but it's an easy way to get an answer to a question that might be really pressing. And so I try to just eliminate the stress and provide access to be reached. Now, if I don't get back to you and you text me at 10 at night, well, then that's sort of call me, but I'm pretty flexible about that.
Yeah, I'm the same way, you know, email anytime. I've been giving up my personal cell phone. I was texting with a student the other night at, you know, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, just because that's when they were available. That's when they were thinking about it. You know, and I don't want them stressing about something that they may not have to stress about overnight if I'm available. You know, just being open to any forms of communication. I'm currently working on setting up like Zoom office hours in my email signature so that people don't have to be like, well, when are you free? No, when are you free? They can just click and, you know, see my calendar and schedule the time to meet. So I think that will be helpful as well.
Yeah, never be afraid to reach out. Academia and grad school stuff, like we're not a 9 to 5 where we're united because we happen to be in HR or something. We're united by our love of a common passion or pursuit or field that's making the world better. So people love talking about stuff, their work, like the field. So whatever it is, reach out. Academics, professors, almost everyone's happy to chat with someone at any stage, whether it's like, I'm thinking about grad school or I'm applying now. And people love giving feedback about stuff about which they're passionate.
Yeah, I'll communicate pretty much with anyone at most times. Not big on the 3 a.m. calls, but sometimes I'm up. But my personal email is on the website, and by virtue of the fact that I don't have a number in my email and my last name is Brown, will tell you how long I've been around. But also we have a public health at UTK email also that goes and is monitored by our staff person. And she immediately, if she gets it through that, an email through there, she'll forward it to the appropriate person, myself, head of the doctoral committee, whoever it might be. There's also there's some expanded opportunities in our application system that if you make inquiries, if you're at some kind of session and there are recruiters there or whatever, and then you get entered in, you're likely to get follow-up emails as a result of that from making an inquiry. As far as my current students, I have had Zoom office hours. I will post often an open session in a given week. It doesn't matter for what, or as needed. A lot of times we just stay after class. Student says, hey, can you stay after class? And it's like, sure, you know, we have a conversation. I try to be very realistic in that I will tell my students, I may not reply within X amount of time, especially if it's the weekend. I have a number of family responsibilities that I have to respect. And I don't want to disrespect the student, making them think I'm available 24/7 when I'm not. So I just say, hey, and if it's the weekend, it may take me a little bit longer to get back to you, but I will. And if I don't, it's okay to email me again. But the fact that you didn't hear from me within 2 hours is not what's going to happen on the weekend. So I just try to be very honest and open about my availability and try to be as accessible as possible within that.
Awesome. So we have one more question in the Zoom chat here. When do you all see the most applications? When students are in their spring semester, junior year, fall, senior year, spring, senior year, summer after undergrad? What time period is generally the best for undergrads to apply?
So for our program, if you want an assistantship, we really ask students to have their application in December of their senior year. Just in an effort, sometimes we'll have students who start in the summer, so that lets the faculty member know who the graduate student coming in, graduate students can plan all of that. But otherwise, we have rolling admission. So sometimes students won't even know they want to go to graduate school until spring or whatever. So we just say, you know, assistantship, obviously earlier because those decisions are usually made earlier. But you know, we have fall, spring, and summer admissions. So we have deadlines in our handbook, and we try to say, you know, try to get it in by the deadline. Like April 1 is for fall, if you want to come in fall. However, we've had students who decided May or June. So ours is a little more flexible. I mean, maybe like yours, Alexis, maybe a little more flexible too, because you have a rolling admission, but assistantships are really where it gets competitive. So December-ish is usually when we ask students to apply if they want that.
Sounds like our schedule is very similar to yours, Carrie. We have February 1st deadline for summer admission, April 1st for fall, and October 1st for spring. That said, especially for our vols or our in-state students, we will flex on those. I won't say absolutely or take that for granted, but things happen, life happens, things change. And I'm always happy to work with people, especially when they present a very compelling desire to attend. I have worked with students and they've been admitted in the summer for fall. I will say, though, the one area that makes it more difficult is if you are an international student. And deadlines around international students are that much ahead. And I would strongly encourage you to, again, consult the graduate school page for deadlines regarding that. It has a lot to do with, as you well know, with visas, transcripts, et cetera. We get a lot of students coming who have not done undergrad here in the United States, and getting all their information and the appropriate tests and so forth can take a little more time. So just with taking the time to prepare, start thinking about it early, even if, you know, give yourself some time to mull it over and think about it. There's deadlines for everything, but we'll also work with you on that.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's the end of our questions today. I want to thank our panelists. You all have been so great. And I think you've provided so many good nuggets of wisdom for our students who are thinking about applying to grad school. Thank you to the students that showed up on Zoom and on Facebook Live. We appreciate you coming. And if you have any questions or need contact information, please feel free to contact myself, Katie Wiley. My email is K as in kite, P as in Paul, ERRY20. So kperry20@utk.edu. I'd be happy to give you any contact information. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and a good weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.